Next up, we have implicit differentiation. And I'm just going to do a pretty intense example of it to remind you of these skills that you need. Remember that you're doing chain rule on this. So when we're differentiating with respect to x, we treat x like normal, but if y is in our function, we have to multiply by the derivative of y with respect to x after differentiating. I would work through this one with me if you have your pencil and paper in front of you. So we'll start with x cubed. The derivative of x cubed with respect to x is just 3x squared. Then we'll look at the derivative of y cubed with respect to x. Remember, y is sort of acting like an inner function here. So we get that the derivative is 3y squared, but then we have to multiply by the derivative of that inner function, which is dy dx. Now we move on to 9xy. This is product rule. It gets pretty messy. I'm going to treat 9x as my first function and y as my second function. Let's start by differentiating the first function. So the derivative of 9x is 9, and I leave y alone. I'm not going to differentiate it. Then I add my first function times the derivative of my second function. And the derivative of my second function is 1 dy dx. And finally, on the other side, I differentiate cosine y with respect to x, get negative sine y. But because I'm using y as my inner function, I multiply by dy dx. Next step, I get all my dy dx's on one side and all my non-dy dx's on the other. So I'm going to have 3y squared dy dx plus 9x dy dx, and I'll move that negative sine y over, make it positive sine y dy dx. On the other side, I'll move over my 3x squared, make it negative 3x squared, negative 9y. Then I can factor out a dy dx out of every term on the left. And then, actually, I will do that in 2 steps. So dy dx, I'm left with 3y squared plus 9x plus sine y equals negative 3x squared minus 9y. And then to solve for dy dx, to find the slope of this function, I can just divide by 3y squared plus 9x plus sine y. Apologize for running out of room, so I'm going to move that to the top. If I divide by all of this, I get negative 3x squared minus 9y over 3y squared plus 9x plus sine y. So implicit differentiation, a little bit of work, but very procedural. You're just using that chain rule over and over again. Next, I'm going to give you one to try. So I'm actually not going to work this one out at all. I would encourage you to pause the video, work this one out on your own, and when you unpause the video, I'll put the answer up in the bottom right-hand corner. If you don't get it correct, I do not have a solution to this one worked out, but I would encourage you to try again and see if you can find your mistake or ask the people around you. And there you go, you should have gotten dy dx equals negative 1/2. Again, on this one, you have to plug in your point, x and y, and evaluate dy dx. Doesn't matter when you plug that point in. You can do it before you solve for dy dx or after you've already solved. You do have to wait until after you've differentiated, though.